Welcome to Indie Gems. I'm your host, Mike Spider Slayer. Guys, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. This is the video series where I discuss about all the independent comic books that are out for the current comic book week. And as you can see, I am in my living room. I am sick. I have the flu. And the only reason why, honestly, that I'm really doing this video is because I've been sick since Wednesday and I have not moved from this couch and I need something to do. So I'm sorry I sound like crap, but I'm bored out of my mind. I read all my comics for the week and I needed to make this video, man. So yeah, if you're not familiar what Indie Gems is I will discuss a comic book that I read, which is an independent comic, and I will reward that comic with a gem. So the different types of gems are brown gem, which means the book is absolute crap, a blue gem, which means it is ice cold, a purple gem, which means it's a mid to good comic book, an orange gem means that book is on fire, but the best gem is the red gem, which means it's a top pick. So with that being said, let's get started with this week's episode. In Bloom, this is issue 2. This book is a $5 comic written by Michael Conrad and the art is done by John Pearson. Now, this is an added bonus for this week, guys. I still haven't gotten my independent comic books or my Marvel comics this week due to delays, not from Diamond, but from weather, like snowstorms and all that other stuff, that got make its travel to Florida. So I read all these books digitally. But again, we're talking about In Bloom issue 2. And when it came to issue 1, I thought issue 1 was very unique. And issue 2, for me, was still unique, and it's a very creative comic book. However, there was too many plot points going on in the comic to keep my interest in the entire thing. I found myself intrigued by the In Bloom process, and if you have not read issue 1, this is an event where people change into plant creatures or whatever it is. It's kind of like an apocalypse, but people welcome this apocalypse. They want this bloom to happen to them. And what's going on is people are actually murdering these bloom people. So there's an investigation going on. Also, I think there's this government thing that's going on that is murdering these people when they have to sacrifice themselves, when they get old, to keep the bloom process going. And there's just a whole bunch of plot points, and I just feel like that in this issue we just focused too much on the investigation process, and I just wasn't involved in it. I couldn't get into that part. I want to know about the bloom itself. I want to know really how it started, right? We learned about the detective's wife, I think, and how she became part of this bloom, but that was kind of about it, and that was a little creepy. But for me, this book is rewarded the blue gem. It just didn't hit me like it did the first issue, and I was worried about that going into this second issue. So if you're looking for something different, I would recommend it, but it just wasn't oh my god, this was so good after reading issue 2. Savage Dragon, issue 275. Obviously, I'm the only one who pretty much reads it. There's a few of you out there that do. But this is a 100-page spectacular. Comes out usually once a year. I should say it's more like 96 pages, and you get $10. And you do get the main story here with, some filler stories also. Again, this is done by Eric Larson, and he also does the artwork as well. And when it comes to this book, this was probably the first time, and I couldn't tell you how long, where there was no sex or porn in a Savage Dragon comic book, which these days there's been that type of stuff in every single issue. This book really dives deep into a lot of action. There's a real solid plot in this one, and let me just say that I found myself going, wow, where's this been all this time, right? And obviously Eric Larson does express his opinion on the new administration in this comic book, okay? Now, obviously he doesn't say any names, but clearly the details that is given in this comic, you know what he's getting at. Also, when it comes to this book, we wind up seeing Savage Dragon, which is now Malcolm Dragon, going out on a mission to Russia to rescue this soldier, and they gotta do battle. There's a whole bunch of other characters that he teams up with, and they just get their asses handed to them. They finally get the soldier as they try to escape, and just as they get to the ship winds up blowing up, and they're like stuck in Russia, and they're just like, oh crap, what's gonna happen now? So yeah, like really good book in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's like the best book. I shouldn't say it's like really good. I would say this is the purple gem status, right? Which means that it was a good book. Savage Dragon hasn't been really good since probably the original Dragon has been in it, but it is headed in the right direction because it seems like in a way we could get the original Dragon back. So I'm definitely looking forward to future issues here, and it's nice as night to have the disgusting, like, over-sexualized stuff in this comic book. Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger Spawn. This is issue 2. It's a 24-page comic for the low price of $3. It's written by Jimmy Palmiotti, and the art is done by Patrick Reynolds. This is a book that's very affordable, and you should give a try. If you guys have not gotten into the character of Gunslinger, this is a perfect jumping on point, because what this book does is this really gives you an insight of who the character is, okay? And kind of like where he came from, who his sister is, who his family was, the demons that are hunting him, and it just creates a lot more mystery in this particular issue, and him trying to figure out like who he is and why he became all this. And it takes place in the Old West, so the art is like real dark and it's real gritty, and it is definitely a great book to pick up. And I find myself intrigued just because it's just so different. You know, I don't read many like Old West type of stories, and this one was neat because it just gives you an insight of kind of like what the Old West was like back then, on how things were so different and how long it took to travel to places and how certain people were respected, and just an overall great book. And the Gunslinger character is phenomenal in here once again. So this one gets rewarded that orange gem, which means this book is fire, man. I like the regular Gunslinger title. I like this Gunslinger title. And like I said, if you guys haven't checked it out yet and you want to jump on board with the character, you don't need to know anything about Spawn. This is where it's at. Hyde Street. This is issue 3. It's a 32-page comic for the price of $4, written by Jeff Johns. The art is done by Ivan Reese. The art always tends to be top-notch in this comic book. It's very dark. It's very horrific. The characters are rich in detail, and these characters just look absolutely awesome in here. They're just so scary at times. And this is like a holiday issue that takes place in January, right? And this story reminded me of The Grinch, because you wind up getting a burglar who goes to people's houses and goes through chimneys and stuff like that and robs everyone of the Christmas presents. I was like, oh man, that's kind of shitty, right? And the whole thing of this is you wind up getting to see Pranky and Mr. X-Ray work together to try to capture this guy's soul. This whole thing is a competition, so whoever gets to so many souls first winds up going back to, I guess, the real world. And it's been very entertaining to see these stories happen. This is not just like an anthology book like, say, Ice Cream Man or Creep Show or those other stories. This has a little bit more meaning, and you're slowly introduced to other characters. And there's a little twist that happens in the end of this book that I didn't see coming, and so I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. So I'm curious to see where they're going to go with this new character that was introduced, and I love the ending of this one as well. So this book is rewarded that orange gem, which means, yes, once again, this book is fire. It is an absolutely awesome comic book, and if you guys like horror or darker tales, I definitely would recommend this comic book. Arcbound, this is issue 3. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $5. It's written by Tom Hardy, Scott Snyder, and the art is done by Ryan Smallman. This is a comic book that has a lot of pinks and greens when it comes to the artwork. It's got some cool fighting and action scenes, especially if you like cyborgs or cybernetic armor and things like that. And when it comes to the story of this comic book, it was about this soldier. I think he was like a captain, and he winds up getting betrayed by one of his closest allies. And now our main character, the good guy, is forced to work with, I guess, the enemy, because they wind up giving him a cybernetic body to actually live. And in this issue, he winds up going into this underground, or it was like a ship that sank, and he has to get these resources. And then meanwhile, we wind up seeing a bounty hunter go after him, and they have to fight, and they do battle and things like that. And listen, there wasn't anything here that was spectacular or amazing. This is just one of those books where I would say when it's done, it's just very forgettable. And this might be a story where you might want to read it and trade and just get the enjoyment out of it that way. So at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to reward this one the purple gem, which means that it was pretty good. It was okay. You know, it's nothing spectacular or amazing. Will I continue to read it? Yeah, I'll read it, and I'll see the direction that it continues to go. Void Rivals. This is issue 16. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. Written by Robert Kirkman, and the art is done by Lorenzo De Felici. The artwork is always really fun in this comic book, especially when there's good action scenes, fight scenes, seeing the Transformers, seeing Derek and Solilla, and all those different things that happen in this comic book. The coloring is unique. I love the way this comic book looks, and I love how it is connected to the Energon universe, and how these characters are connected to the Transformers lore, and I think that's really awesome. Now, in the beginning of this comic book, it was advertised that Pathona and Skugzoid were going to do battle against each other. Now, Skugzoid is that character that actually collects things, and when he collects them, he sells them off to people. That's how he makes his living. And when Pathona and Skugzoid cross paths, there's this big freaking epic fight that happens, and oh my gosh, guys, when this fight ends, I didn't see it coming, right? And then, as we get to the second half of this book, we see Solilla continue on her dark adventure on discovering more, I would say, Transformer lore. And then she comes across something that seems very huge. And there's a line said at the end of this comic book that brings back memories to the Transformer movie from back in the day. And I'll just give you a hint. It was said by Megatron after his fight with Optimus Prime. Yeah, this was rewarded the red gem this week, guys. This book was absolutely awesome. Top pick in my eyes. I love this story. There's so much that goes into it. There's so much, it's so unique, I should say. And I'm so curious to see how this story and this world and all these characters in here continue to develop. So now we move on to the indie gem of the week, which means, yes, it was Void Rivals issue 16, the only book that was rewarded that red gem this week, the top pick. And yeah, just a really good series overall. If you guys haven't read Void Rivals, I would suggest pick up the trades and get into it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And obviously, this comic book will go into a list of all the other indie gems of the week. And we'll see at the end of the year which one was my favorite. And there you guys have it. There is this week's episode of Indie Gems. Sorry, it was not the best episode and not the best location without the best audio and the best voice. But I had to do it. I had to do something. I've been on this couch since Wednesday, and I was bored out of my mind. So guys, as always, if you like the content, even though this is probably at my worst, there's more content right here for you to click on. And of course, guys, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting. Always remember, read your comics so we have great comic conversation. And hopefully, by Monday, I'll be a little bit better. So guys, thank you so much. I'll see you real soon. Bye.